From 2016, 2019, all I wanted to do was just grow the route. My goal was 300 pools, I think before I turned 27. We never hit that goal because when I got to like 200 pools, I was in charge of the office. I was doing the repairs. I was managing the techs. I was trying to be Superman. I was like, you know what? There's no point in getting to 300 if I'm not going to be taking care of my guys, if I'm not going to be taking care of my customers, if I'm not going to be doing stuff right. So took a step back and was just like, let's do this right. Like let's price people right. Let's charge the correct amount and try to get more infrastructure in the business so that, you know, we can continue to grow.
This is episode 225 with Carl Spinnler of BluTex. Enjoy.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Viafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Carl. Been a long time coming, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Can you introduce yourself to listeners?
My name is Carl Spinnler. I'm the former owner of BluTex Pools in Houston, Texas. Big fan of Pool Chasers. I was a big fan of Brothers Pool Service before they started Pool Chasers. So it's a total dream for me to be on the podcast. So I'm very, very grateful to be here today.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we've known each other for a long time. Probably one of the oldest relationships I have in this industry besides, locally. So I'm excited to finally get to talk to you on the show. I think there was a while where we kind of helped each other out with different kind of suggestions and went back and forth, sending each other kind of documents, those kind of things on what we were doing. Why don't you share kind of why you reached out to us in the beginning?
So when I reached out to you guys, I think at the time of my pool service business, I probably had maybe one or two techs working for me. And I was at that point where I was kind of transitioning out of being just a technician into being more of a manager, more of a business owner. And I was kind of new to Instagram, and I started looking at like pool stuff on Instagram, and your page popped up, and I saw these two young guys, with a super clean looking business, looked like they had employees, looked like they had everything figured out. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's the secret sauce? Like, let me know. Like, cause when I started my business, I didn't really have no one really trained me on how to run a business or anything. So I was just like trying to figure out processes and procedures. I didn't really know what POs were, or like I was like, man, how do these big companies, like how do they work?
Right.
So I reached out to you guys, and we just kind of formed that relationship, and you guys were more than willing to share information with me, and I think that's probably me and some other people reaching out to you guys probably made you guys consider starting Pool Chasers. Yeah. So that you could kind of be more efficient in spreading good information. So
yeah, definitely,
it worked out.
I think that's pretty cool. I've always thought that, the way that you reached out to us through Instagram was like direct message. Before direct message was like a huge thing. It was just an interesting way to start it. And like, hey, can you give me a call? And we kind of, I actually remember where I was when I was talking to you. I was thinking about the other day, like in my old kitchen, like 3 houses ago, I think, in my kitchen, just kind of like answering your call, not knowing who you are, what this is about. And I think we talked for a good hour or so, I think, that first time. So it was a cool conversation and just went from there. But I always thought that was a cool way to kind of start that friendship.
Yeah, I remember that. I felt bad because I kept hearing like your kids in the background, and I was like, oh man, like I was like, you like we don't need to keep talking. And you're like, but you're so open, and you're just like, we're so willing to share your knowledge, and I was like, I was super grateful. So
yeah,
no, it was awesome.
It's cool. Yeah, Greg's always done a great job with the Instagram feed, and we had a plan and kind of followed that, and he grew that piece tremendously. It was a big help for me, because I kind of started out the same as you, on my own with my younger brother, and then he stepped out, and I did it by myself for, close to a year before Greg came on and kind of developed that piece. And that's really kind of changed the game for us, going through Instagram and then Google reviews and Yelp reviews when nobody was really doing it. It only took us like 11 reviews to get to the top or something back then, I remember. So
Yeah, I mean, not just Instagram and social media, but like the whole like look of the brand. I mean, you can see it in Pool Chasers. Everything's super consistent. It's got this theme, you know, it just feels a certain way. And I remember like going on, like just kind of like stalking you guys digitally, you know, on your website, you're reading your reviews, and just like you had this really cool, like professionally edited video on your website where it showed you guys like entering stuff into Pool Track and like talking with a customer and just doing the service. I was like, whoa, that's awesome. You know, I mean, now it's probably standard on most people's websites, but you know, 6 or 7 years ago or whenever that was,
10 years ago. Yeah.
it was, it's cutting edge.
Yeah. It was really cool, man.
Definitely set you apart.
Yeah, for sure. And he brought a different, you know, style to the industry. He really did. I think that spread quite a bit across. It's a lot. It is pretty standard now to have a lot of that stuff, and I think he definitely helped create a lot of that. So pretty sweet. So walk us through kind of your journey a little bit, you know, from when you started. How did you get introduced to pools and kind of get into the industry?
Yeah, for sure. So I was just thinking about this. I've been in the industry now for 15 years. I started when I was a lifeguard when I was 15, and that kind of got me into being around pools. Prior to that, I was always around pools. I was in the swim team, swam year round. But being a lifeguard, getting paid $5.85 an hour, it's my first job. And I was a pretty lazy employee, to be honest with you. We had to check chlorine and pH every hour. And I would get in there at the beginning of the day and just like pre-fill the logbook. And I got in trouble for that. So yeah, I didn't learn much about cleaning pools as a lifeguard. But I did that a few summers. And then when I was in college, I started doing the winter maintenance on the pools. Or I think even in high school, I did that. So in off season, I would go around and clean the pools, and I got a little bit better at chemistry, but I got more familiar with backwashing and using deck vacs and just kind of a little bit more technical stuff. Still didn't really know too much about cleaning pools.
On the commercial kind of side of things?
Yeah, they're all, you know, neighborhood HOA commercial pools.
Yeah.
So that got me into the cleaning side. And then one of my good family friends, he kind of knew what I was doing, and he was cleaning his own pool, and he didn't want to do it anymore. And so he was like, "Hey, I'd rather pay you than some other pool company." And I was really reluctant. I was like, "Man, I don't really know too much about pools." Like, I was a lifeguard, and I remember he was like, "Oh, it's super easy. Like, you just there's a couple floaters in the pool, and you just got to fill it all the way up with tabs and throw in shock once a week." And the shock was trichlor shock.
Right.
And so the CYA on that pool like went up. I don't even know what it was. I didn't even know what CYA was then.
Right.
But I struggled with that pool with a lot of algae because I'm sure the CYA was at like 200 or something.
Probably
that was my first
much
customer.
higher than that.
Yeah. Off the charts. Could have been a case study.
Right.
So started with that one customer, and 10 years later we still had that customer. Anyways, after I started cleaning their pool, kind of word of mouth went about, and started cleaning about 10 pools every Friday while I was doing other jobs, going to college, and it was a cool little side gig. And that was probably around 2013. I kind of had that mini route going on. Bought a hammerhead, even though I didn't really need it. Just had some really, really leafy pools, no cleaners. But I don't know. I saw one. I thought it'd be cool. And then
so you spent
I really,
all the money on it.
Yeah. Spent. Yeah. There
Your
was like a couple
route,
months where I just didn't have any. Like, I was like, whatever. This thing's awesome. Didn't really have any plans for the business or anything. It was just cool, like just a little bit of side money. And then one summer, I went to Europe. My parents were living there at the time for work, and I spent a month over there. And I paid one of my friends, Christian Alvum, with Unified Pool Solutions, to cover my route. And so he did a great job. I came back, I paid him basically all the money I got from the route. So I didn't really have any money. I was like broke. And one of my customers wanted to remodel their pool. And, bear in mind, like I don't really know too much about anything, but they really it was a good family friend. They're like, no, like you can do it. Like, I believe in you. Like, just like, give me a quote. And so I was like, okay. Just started, it was the middle of summer, called 10 pool builders. No one returned my call except for one guy. Met me out on the job site, told them what they wanted to do. And we didn't end up remodeling their pool, but he was like, hey, my wife has a small route. If you ever want extra work, like, let us know. And I was like, yeah, I'd love it. So I worked for them for about 9 months, cleaning about 35 pools for them, plus the 10 on my own. And they wanted to get out of the industry. So they gave me a super sweet deal on their route. So I think they gave me 35 pools at like 3 months worth of revenue, and I got to pay it over 3 months. And it came with some chemicals and another hammerhead. So then I was almost full time in the pool, industry. What was cool about buying their route is that they kind of knew what they were doing. They had everybody on QuickBooks, like recurring billing. Their pricing was a lot better than mine. So buying an established route was like really nice, because they kind of helped me get it all set up. So got a business bank account, got an LLC, just I was able to kind of like start fresh, whenever I bought their route. So then I had about 45 customers working about 3.5 days a week. And it was cool. I basically did it all by myself for maybe 6 months, and, paid off the route, kind of built up a little bit of cash. I didn't think I was really going to grow the business. But one of my good friends that I worked with and that I went to the University of Houston with, he would always just tell me, like, he's like, man, you gotta think about growth. Like, how are you going to hire another person? And like, and I was like, no, like, no one's going to clean the pools as good as me. Like, I don't want to hire anybody. And then something changed, and I was like, nah, man, like, I can't, like, it's not a sustainable business model if I have to do everything. And so I hired someone probably around like 45 pools before I really needed another hand. Trained him up, bought a little Tacoma salvaged work truck that I think is still running today, 2008.
Nice.
And hired my first tech. And that was probably around 2015, 2016. And he did a great job. He worked for us for maybe 9 months and then moved away. And then after that, it was just kind of rinse and repeat. I just trained up the technicians, kind of set them out on their routes. And then my job was just to build up another route for another tech. And for, a few years from 2016, 2019, it was just all I wanted to do was just grow the route. My goal was 300 pools, I think before I turned 27. And we never hit that goal, because I think when I got to like 200 pools and I was in charge of the office, I was doing the repairs, I was managing the techs. I was trying to be Superman. Yeah. I was like, you know what? There's no point in getting to 300 if it's not if I'm not going to be taking care of my guys, if I'm not going to be taking care of my customers, if I'm not going to be doing stuff right. So took a step back, probably around 2018, 2019, and was just like, you know what? Like, let's do this right. Like, let's price people right. Let's charge the correct amount and try to get more infrastructure in the business so that, we can continue to grow, because the 200 pools, me managing everything, it wasn't really that fun.
Yeah, no. Well, I'll stop right there real quick, because I think there's a ton of like steps within that I want to kind of go back. So when you first took those pools over and you created your LLC, like, what was that feeling like? Did you felt like you wanted to run your own business at that point, or you kind of just something that developed for you?
So whenever I started the business, I was going to U of H and I was studying business, and I always told myself, like, I'm going to, when I graduate college, I'm going to sell this business and I'm going to start a real business. And I remember it was like general business class or something. And I remember going on the Secretary of State's website and filing the LLC. And so it was just just kind of like natural. It was like, all right, like this is what I'm going to be doing now for the next couple years. And then, this is a cool opportunity for the short term. I never ended up graduating from U of H because like maybe the next semester it was like spring and
it started to
my
consume
phone was
you.
ringing off. I was going to school for business and then this little side business was ringing off. My phone was ringing off the hook. So I was like, man, I don't know if I can do both. If I was a better delegator, I probably could have.
Right.
But at that point I was just like work hard, like do everything yourself kind of mentality.
Yep. Wanted to control it all.
So, yeah.
Yep.
No,
for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah,
it's just kind of funny how that stuff develops and you realize, because I kind of had the same thing. My dad was like, oh, look at this. We had a pool guy at the time, go talk to him, see how he would, see what he's doing. I'm like, nah, I'm not, I'm like, he's like same kind of thing. Like I want a real business, I don't know. I don't want to be like that. Guys wearing flip flops and kind of, long hair, and it just was the typical pool guy look. And so I was like, that's not who I am. But then it just started to kind of click for me too. Same thing. Like, wow, I could actually, I only need so many pools to match my income. And it wasn't very many, like 45, like you said. Right. So then it's like, oh, okay, I could be working for myself at like 50 pools. Like that's pretty cool. And then, yeah, you just learned, that's the same kind of way that I did it. So I get that, but it wasn't for me. It was either was like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur my whole life and start my own business. That was like never my thing either. It's kind of like, oh, this thing's pretty cool.
So when I was in high school, I was taking flight lessons because I thought I was going to be a commercial airline pilot.
That's right. Yep.
And so I was doing that. I was cleaning pools. I was probably working other jobs, and I was a swim instructor at one point as well. So just kind of always around pools.
Yeah.
But I was flying, and it got to the point where I talked to an advisor at a local college, aeronautical college, and he was like, yeah, like the pilots, they really love what they do. They don't do it just for the money. And at that point, I was like, wait, what? Like. I thought airline pilots got paid like a ton. Like that's what I'm kind of here for. Like I like flying, don't get me wrong, but like I don't love it.
Right.
So it's more of a hobby. And so he's like, yeah, I mean, after 20 years or, after they put in their time, yeah, they do get paid well. But when you're starting out, it's not glorious. Like you don't get paid that much, it's like a teacher's salary. And so I was like, oh, like, I don't know about that. So when I stopped flying, I was like, all right, like I never completed my license, but I told myself like, if I'm gonna go into business, I need to get the business to a point to where it can pay for me to go back to flight school. Mm. So that was kind of always in the back of my head.
Nice. That's cool, man. So go back to the part where you said you had 45 pools and you hired your first person. That's a little early to hire a person, I think, for most people. How come you decided to do that?
Because I wanted time to train him. Being kind of a control freak, I wanted to make sure he knew every single pool, every customer, every gate. Like I wanted it done a certain way. I always wanted our reputation to be a good one. And so, starting out, it just seemed like the right thing to do. And I've always been kind of obsessed with like extra capacity. Like I always wanted an extra truck, just in case. And that they usually always kind of helped to have that extra capacity. An extra person on the team what helps, when someone calls out or, whatever happens, someone quits or you have to fire someone. It's kind of hard, to just pay someone to, just hang out.
Right.
I mean, but you can find stuff for them to do. That was kind of our flex role.
Sure.
After we got a few more people, but yeah, I mean, it just seemed like the right thing to do when I made that decision. Like, hey, like I want to grow the business. Like I can't clean all the pools myself. So I might as well hire someone before I need them so that whenever it does pick up, because I hired him in like probably October, November. And then, that spring it was like went from 40 to 65 to 75, like pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because I already had someone who knew what they were doing. I didn't have to train someone and take on new accounts at the same time.
Sure. So how long did you ride together then? That whole time?
We rode together. I think I got him a work because at that time I only had one truck.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where it was like he was ready to go, but I didn't have a truck for him. And I remember buying that salvage truck, and it was like such a glorious day. I was like,
For
all right,
sure.
man, like got you a truck, like good to go.
Yeah.
So he probably rode with me for like 2 or 3 months.
Okay. That's pretty good. That's a good time. You know what? The more I train technicians and stuff, the more I wish we spent more time with them, right? A lot of times, especially when you get bigger, it's like someone rides along for a week and they're out. That's hard, because they're not gonna care for them the same way as you. Nobody ever will, as a business owner. But hopefully, you can get them to care enough, right, to do it. And
But I mean,
by 1-2 weeks, it's like you're out there and going. It's tough. So,
yeah, it gets to that point where you just don't have that capacity, and you're like, well, if I keep training you, we won't be able to cover the route. And so like you kind of have to do it. We've been in that situation a couple times.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. So did you then start learning repairs, or what were you doing while he was running the route?
Yeah, I mean, I think like from kind of the day one, like when I bought the route from my previous bosses, they like my old boss, he was a pool builder and he did a lot of repairs. And so anytime a repair came up, he would kind of coach me through it. So at 45 pools, I probably wasn't finding every issue, but I was trying to tackle all the filter cleans, motors, just like real basic stuff. So yeah, definitely I was doing repairs, cleaning, just whatever I could do to grow the business.
Yeah. So how'd you pick the name, and when did you decide to kind of brand it that way? Because I've always liked your logo and thought it was kind of a unique spin on it, even though it's generic Texas, you know what I mean? But it was a pretty cool way to do it. And most companies pick like a design of a pool, when they're first starting, but yours is a little bit unique. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it doesn't have anything like really pool related in it,
No.
other than the pools on it. But I got a yellow pad of paper, wrote down 20 different names, and showed them to my friends, and everybody liked BluTex. Yeah, I remember I was in college going to business classes, and I was reading like articles about like how Google, brands, and like how these huge Fortune 500 companies like kind of come up with their names, and how it's like really simple, and there's a certain amount of like syllables, and maybe some of that kind of went into the simplicity of it. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Just wrote down a bunch of names and
how'd you come up with the logo?
My good friend, like my best friend, he I don't know how he created it, but the first logo he created in like Microsoft Paint or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made it for me. And then maybe 4 years later, Haley's brother is a graphic designer. He tuned it up and made it what it is today.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. So you had one guy, you decided to grow it. So what was your plan, once you decided to actually put the effort in to growing the business?
There's no plan.
Come on. Control freak didn't have a plan?
Dude, yeah, it was just grow, like just more accounts. Like that's all I wanted. I really liked the residual income of the pool cleaning. It was just cool to sign up a customer and be like, all right, there's another, X amount of money next month. That's basically all I really focused on, to be honest with you, was just building the route, and whatever it took to keep a customer, or I wouldn't gaining new customers, I was kind of selective. I didn't want to beat up the market on price too much, so I wasn't trying to like do anything crazy with gaining them. But I guess the plan, that's kind of when I started reaching out to you guys, because I kind of wanted to know how to do it. But I just started going on Yelp. Yelp was big for us, just putting pictures, responding to reviews, asking customers for reviews. That really helped us a lot, because then, whenever someone Googled pool service, we would show up on that Yelp's top 10 for your area.
That had to be key for you, because I remember talking about that, and that was one of our first conversations, right? Was like, hey, we're just doing this Yelp thing, and I mean, Greg obviously knew way more than I did. That's probably how I told you we're doing this Yelp thing, but it doesn't take too much to get to the top, and they're coming in, and I think you did do that pretty quickly once we had that conversation, and it's crazy how at that time it allowed you to grow so quickly like that, because that was it. Like, Yelp started to blow up, and you had already built that organic, reach on there. So it was pretty similar to what we did.
Yeah, it worked really well. We got a lot of leads and a lot of good customers from it. It was cool because the type of customers we're getting weren't the people who like just clicked the first thing that popped up. They would like read a little bit. And so they would kind of like read what, I filled out the bio, and they would read our reviews and all that stuff. And so they know a little bit about us, and they could kind of select, like, they kind of knew what type of service they were getting before they called us for service.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I like that. I forgot about that, but that's cool. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, Carl dives deeper into his decision to focus on the business infrastructure, how they developed it, and how he got to a point where he realized he wanted to exit the business.
This episode is brought to you by Leslie's. Leslie's continues to deliver for pool trade professionals by providing benefits no one else can offer. The Leslie's Pro Partner Program can help you grow your business through referrals, while also providing their most exclusive pricing and best-in-class warranties on equipment. The Leslie's Pro Partner Program is for pros looking to build a true partnership with their supplier. Stop by your local Leslie's to learn how you can become a pro partner today, or check out episodes 151 and 165 of the podcast for more details.
This episode of Pool Chasers Podcast is also brought to you by The Attendant. The Attendant, powered by Poolside Tech, is the latest in pool automation. Their system offers innovative features and applied intelligence to help it think and communicate with both pool pros as well as the homeowner. It offers features such as syncing your DMX lights to Spotify, built-in water leveling, dirty filter detection, and my favorite, Airbnb mode, which allows a pool owner to grant access to users with restrictions to specific pool features or defining set points for heating events. User access can also expire at a specific time. Best of all, the Attendant is vendor agnostic, so it's compatible with the equipment from existing manufacturers on the market today. Learn more at poolside.tech or check out episode 194 of the podcast. So when you got to 200 and you decided that you were going to focus on that and not continuing to grow, I remember actually having that conversation with you at a trade show, I believe, because we had a few different times where we met up at Texas trade shows, but remember going through that with you. Like, what was the decision behind that, or can you go deeper into that?
Yeah, I just think that we were just too disorganized. I'm not a very organized person, and I did have a couple administrative assistants, prior, to getting to 200, just kind of part-time, and they did a really good job. Rosanna was one of them. She was a customer that turned into an employee that I think reached out to you guys like in the early Brothers days.
Oh,
because I told her, I was like, she made our first website. So Rosanna, thank you. We're still friends to this day. She's awesome. So yeah, she made our first website, and I told her, I was like, all right, Google Brothers Pool Service in Arizona. I want it to look like that. Like I want the same feel. And then she ended up like reaching out to you guys, and I don't know what else happened, but so yeah. My administrative assistants, like, they just didn't like stick around, probably because I was just so disorganized. It's probably hard working for me. Managing that amount of customers where they all had access to my cell phone. doing most of the repairs. I may have had a couple repair techs at that time, like not at the same time, but just kind of over that year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped a little bit, but just kind of having my hands in everything, it's just not sustainable. And so I guess I hit that breaking point where I was like, dude, this isn't working. And so yeah, just kind of had to take a step back and reassess kind of like what would be a better strategy to, grow or to take, or to not grow. It's just kind of like one of those like fork in the road moments. I got super lucky because my fiance Haley was working at in the corporate office at a property management company around the same time, and she has been around like for the whole, like she saw BluTex from before, when it was like just the 10 pool route. So she's been there through the journey the whole time, kind of watched, and I would ask her questions like, how would your company handle this situation? And, I'd always bounce stuff off of her. So she knew the business very, pretty well for someone who didn't work in it. And she was kind of tired of her corporate job. And she was like, if I quit, like, would you hire me? And I was like, yeah, like, when can you start? Let's go. And so she ended up, putting in her notice at her job. And I remember like she was a really good employee. So they came back and like offered her more and stuff. And she turned it down because she just wasn't happy with the work environment. And right before she was going to start, she put in like a 2-month like notice. So like, cause she was like an essential employee. She didn't want to just do like 2 weeks or anything.
Sure.
And like this was probably like maybe March of 2019, and it's starting to pick up. And I'm like, hey, like when are you gonna start? Like, we need you. And she was like, well, they said that like maybe I can work part-time as a contractor. I was like, no, like there's no time for that. Like, we need you full-time here.
Yeah.
And so luckily that didn't pan out, and she came on full-time in 2019. And that was a game changer for us. Having someone in the office who understood processes, procedures, software, she came from IT. So she had that technical background, and she really just got us like organized. I mean, our accounts receivable were at like $30,000 overdue.
Ouch.
For that, like whenever she came on, and then she got it down to like below 5 when we left. And so that was really key, getting her in, because she has a strong like HR background as well. So we started doing employee performance reviews and evaluations and just check-ins, just kind of non-formal check-ins just to see where our employees were. And that was kind of a game changer, just to sit down with a team member, talk about, what's going on, where they're at, where their head's at, just taking the time. I think that our employees really appreciated it, and it was pretty insightful. So that was, one of the many things that she brought to the table that was like really helped us get to 300 pools in the next couple of years.
Yeah. I think, I've had a couple conversations about this, but if I had to do it again, I would definitely hire an office person before I hired like repair techs or other, actual operations positions, because it was very difficult, I think, to do both in the field, trying to be the phone operator, the billing person, any questions. If you're on the field, like, you're not on a computer, so if people are calling you, or you don't have access to most things until you get back to your office later in the day, and then it's like dinner time and you're calling them, and it's just a really big challenge. And I think if we'd done it again, I would definitely have hired the office side first to control that. And like you said, like it's different when somebody can sit there and pay attention all day long and see some of the flaws and try to fix them, as opposed to you just making it work, you know what I mean? Or piecing it together. And you're right. Like, they get to be around the employees. They get to see what's going on at the office. And they get to sit there and see all this stuff happening, and then report to you about it. And you can do those employee reviews and kind of spend the time that you should have been spending with them. Just such a huge game changer. You're right.
Yeah, it's a total game changer when you have someone in there who can really like own their job and like take it to the next level, do it better than you. I mean, that's
pretty much
at the end of the day, like if you're a business owner, like what's the point of being the best pool cleaner or the best repair person if you have other people on your team? Like you want them to be better than you, in my opinion, because you're only one person. If you got 8 people on your team, like you want them to be the stars of the show when it comes to those technical things or just in general.
So what did you start
Absolutely.
doing when she came into that?
Yeah, so I gave up the office, which was like a huge, stress relief because I wasn't really that great at it. I don't know how we lasted as long as we did. And, she helped kind of gave, like she helped with the HR stuff. So I wasn't always, the person to go to for time off requests and kind of little issues here and there. So that was cool. So it just allowed me to kind of focus on repairs, which is where we have, higher margins. And so yeah, I learned a lot about repairs, got to do a lot of repairs, and then, and then we got super lucky and we hired a really great guy, Tristan Brackenridge, like our first like full-time like repair tech. Like I had repair techs in the past and they're experienced and they helped me out a lot because they knew more than I did, but they learned some bad tricks and they just, they've just been in the industry for a while and it just didn't end up working out. And Tristan had that level of experience that was like, he knew a little bit, but he was still teachable. And so I got to show him like exactly how I wanted things done. And we got to learn together. And so we hired Tristan, I think like early 2020, maybe January 2020 or like November of 2019. And, with having, at that time, I think we may have had a route manager or someone of like some type of senior status in the pool route. So our routes were kind of covered pretty much. Haley was probably managing a lot of that. And then the office was covered with Haley. So I really got to devote a lot of time to training Tristan. And that was a game changer whenever you have kind of all those areas of your business like kind of taken care of. And so that was cool to train Tristan, get him to a point where he's kind of more autonomous, operating on his own. It took a while, took like a good like 6 months or so, maybe longer, but I mean, he totally killed it. It's definitely worth the investment.
Sure. So after that, you spend the time doing that. This is the part I think, is a complete full circle, right, of your story and kind of how you exited the industry. Not a lot of people have done what you've done, where you've purchased a business, you ran it, you grew it, and you exited, right? Like it's a kind of unique position, which is really why I wanted to kind of hear your story on the show, just because it's unique and it's cool that the opportunity was there for you to learn a trade, go through the whole process, learn how to run your own business, go through the ups and downs and the struggles and the successes, and then figure out, okay, I'm kind of done with this period of my life and kind of move on to whatever else you want to do. So talk through that kind of process. How did you get to a point where you thought maybe, I'm not sure I want to do this forever, and how that started?
Yeah, for sure. After we hired Tristan and Haley's running full time, Tristan's running full time. At that time, we probably had, I don't know, like 9 or 10 employees, like maybe including Haley and I. I'm not sure. I think like maybe peak employees, including Haley and I, were like 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
But we had almost everything covered, and it was, there's still some bumps along the road, but it was running pretty smooth. It was running very smooth compared to how it's been in the past.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. I mean, it was great. And I was just kind of at that another kind of fork in the road where I was just kind of like,
you were bored.
What's next?
You got bored?
I mean, we still had a long, like, there's always more to do and
sure,
more to grow and to get better at. But, we were kind of right at around 300 customers, full-time repair department, a bunch of techs out cleaning pools. and the calls came in. We kind of had a process going, and we'd sign them up, and so it was great. Everything was working the way that we intended it to, and so what I was like, all right, so if we're going to keep this growth going, I need to invest more in the business. And in my head, I was like, we need to get some property, bigger property, so that we can, just have a better operation. And just looking at that investment and looking at the time frame of the investment, I was just like, man, I don't know if that's something I really want to do. Because, in my head, I was like, man, if we buy property, yeah, like I'm definitely not going to get out of this in the next, at least the next like 10 years, and which wouldn't be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just kind of had to look inside and be like, all right, do I want to do this for another 10 years? Like past 10 years been great, learned a lot. But do I want to keep doing it? And so, I've always told myself like work for experience, not money. And the past my last 2 years at BluTex, like I gained a lot of experience, but I felt like it was more leaning towards like just cash and checks, It was like, which was cool, but I don't feel like I was, having as much fun as like, those first few years of just like growing.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I was looking at where I wanted to take the company, what were the next steps? And, I think, January of 2021, I've always looked up to Hal Denbar with Patriot Pools, because he was on the Pool Chasers podcast.
Mm-hmm.
There's another guy like, what, how are you doing it? Like just really awesome icon in the industry. And so I reached out to him a few times and connected, picked his brain. And then when I saw he sold his business to NPP, I immediately reached out to him because I didn't know that he was going to go work for NPP. I thought he just exited. So I was like, oh, great. Like he'll be able to tell me all the details about Patriot, and I could I got their playbook and I'll implement it here at BluTex. And then he told me about what he was doing. And so I actually ended up meeting up with him in Augusto. We went out to breakfast and started talking about kind of what it would look like if BluTex became a NPP brand. And I was like on board. I was like, yeah, like we're going to be Houston. Like we're doing this.
Yeah.
Haley was really, really stoked. A lot of great advantages. But then again, with the investment, if I'm going to step up to the plate for Hal, I want to do it 100%. And, I want to do a good job. And I was like, man, like, I don't think I'm in it. Like for the long term, if I have the opportunity to exit, I think I want to exit. I don't want to, exit and still stay on. And so I was, one person we've left out of this whole story, is one of my good childhood friends, Ben Neighbors. He owns a pool company called Neighbors Pools, and we started our companies around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were always, I found him on Facebook because I saw him cleaning pools. And I was like, hey man, like you clean pools? Like, so do I. And so we would always just share, knowledge, share equipment. I remember one of his trucks were down. I had an extra truck, let him borrow it for the day. He used one of my repair techs when I didn't have any work for him. He's like, I got work. Like, come help me with a light pool. So just that weird relationship of like, we were competitors, but like we'd help each other out, and it wasn't a big deal. So, we were talking since day one of starting our businesses, but when I told him about NPP, I was thinking about, selling my business to them and then going to go work for NPP. He was like, oh man, like I'll buy your business. And at first I thought he was just kind of joking, because we talked about merging our businesses together for, probably 2 or 3 years ago, kind of continuously. Maybe once every 6 months we'd throw out the idea. It just never came to fruition. And then after like a good 6 months to a year of negotiating, on January 1st of 2022, Neighbors Pools bought BluTex Pools. And so now he's the new owner of BluTex Pools.
Very cool, man. It's a pretty cool story. I just feel like it's a complete circle. So did you feel satisfied at that point? I mean, what's the feeling at that point? It
was cool. It was definitely a cool feeling. it was also a little nerve wracking. I'm not going to lie. Cause I built up a pretty nice income. It's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. It's like my first like professional job. So to leave it was kind of a tough decision, but I knew it was the right decision. And I knew that Ben was invested in the long term, and like, it was cool to kind of pass the baton off to my friend. So that was pretty gratifying. But no, it was cool. It was cool to, my last day was March 31st, 2022, which was my 30th birthday. So it was kind of cool to be like, all right, well, like, this business, this chapter of my life is kind of closed, I guess, for now.
Yeah.
And so it was a cool feeling. But yeah, no, I'm super stoked for whatever's next. I don't really have anything lined up yet. Still just kind of enjoying this kind of semi-retirement life, riding my bike and just taking flight lessons and stuff. But no, it was a really cool experience. No, it was awesome.
Yeah, I've always kind of been inspired the way you looked at, the experience side of it. A lot of people don't see that and don't understand, having the experiences, right? And for you, a lot of that was the experience, the ride, the journey, the grind, and when you get to a certain point, some people just don't want to continue that piece. And, just chapters can change and, new things can come along, or other people will take down the road and double down and continue down that same, there's different paths to success. And I've always thought that it was pretty cool just how you felt the experience and lived the experience. And some of our conversations always went to like that side of things. Even your journey after, you guys went like what, backpacking for several months, or what did you guys, or road tripping?
Yeah, I went on a mega road trip for like 2.5 months. It was total dream. Yeah, it was so cool. Cause like every summer, when Haley was working with me, she'd like show me pictures of like Montana during the summer and just these awesome places. And summer in the pool season, like we never took any vacations. Like maybe a 3-day weekend. It was like, oh, we're getting away. Right. We're going to Austin or something. And so it was like, all right, first summer off, like we're taking advantage of it. So yeah, we went up to Montana, Wyoming, spent a month in Canada, came down the West Coast. It was a total dream.
Nice, man. Did you go down the PCH all the way, on the West Coast, Pacific Coast Highway?
Pacific Coast Highway? Yeah. So we took the 101 through like Oregon.
Yeah.
And then took the California one.
Yep.
For a while before we came back.
That's like my favorite drive.
Yeah.
Monterey is like my favorite city. But through that whole path is awesome. So, but I admire that, and I think it's pretty cool that you took the time to do that, because I've always wanted to do something similar to that, where you kind of just let it go and go do what you want to do. And with having younger kids, it's a little harder, but it's kind of like at a point where you got to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? And spend several months kind of just doing what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we don't have kids, so that allowed us to
right.
Just kind of split. But yeah, no, it was a total dream. It's really cool.
Cool, man. Well, I just really wanted to share your story because I feel like it's an inspirational one, but it's also just different one. It's some people want to be here for 30, 40 years. Some people don't need to be. You've been successful at what you do. Our friendship has grown over the years, and I've been super proud to watch you kind of grow that business as we've grown. We grew ours almost, we were a little bit bigger than you when we first started talking, but similar paths to growth. And when we sold our business, it was at like 400. So, similar times as well. But I just think it's an awesome story that can inspire people to pick different paths and, maybe not always be tied to an industry and tied to summers, in the field, that kind of thing.
Do you know who Tim Ferriss is?
Yeah.
So he's got this book, Tribe of Mentors.
Yep.
You familiar with it?
Yep. It's on my shelf in my office.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I don't know who he interviewed, but they said he was like, there's a question. It's like, what would you tell a college graduate, like life advice? And he was like, whoever the person he was interviewing said, every 10 years is like a new life, and you'll pretty much have, 6 or 7 different lives, that you can live. And so, he was like, go out, be a cowboy, like just try new things. And so that kind of helped me. I was like, all right, well, spent 10 years being a pool guy, small business owner. So, got a good taste of that. Like, let's, you got one life, like, why not try something new?
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of always would go back to that. But yeah, no, I mean, I got really lucky, man. I got, really good people I met along the way, like you and Greg and Mark Ubernecken with Unified Pool Solutions, Ben Neighbors with Neighbors Pools. I mean, none of this would be possible without him.
Right.
Got to meet Hal Denbar, and, eat breakfast with him in Augusto, the CEO of NPP. Just those connections, like, it's total dream, to meet those people in this industry. And, so I got really lucky. Haley coming in and really getting the business to a point to where it could be sellable.
Right.
That was
A
awesome.
huge piece for sure.
Yeah. It was a big game changer there. So yeah, man. I would just say, if I had any advice for anybody who's like kind of coming up, just kind of have some type of like vision as to like what the end goal is. Probably get there a little faster, because it's just like, all right, let's try this. I didn't really have a real vision for it, but it all worked out in the end. So
yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for your time, and always enjoyed our friendship, man. I think your story will inspire many people, so appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This was awesome.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To connect with today's guests, including pictures, links, and resources from everything discussed today, you can visit the episode page at poolchasers.com or click the links below. To connect more with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by searching at Pool Chasers. If you would like to support the podcast, the easiest and most effective way is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as share the show or your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Also, you can get early access to each episode by supporting us through Patreon. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for sharing some of yours with us today.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.